Comedy Now, Uncensored, starring Dan Bingham. Please welcome Dan Bingham. Hey, guys. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, man. Thanks, guys. That is awesome. Toronto, how you feeling tonight? I like it. It's great to be here. I am from Montreal, and I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but Montreal, I mean, not only do we have some of the worst drivers on the planet, right? But we somehow got stuck with all the worst pedestrians as well. Like the other night I'm driving, right? I came up a little too quickly on a stop sign. Bumper comes a little too close to a pedestrian. So the pedestrian gives me one of these. He's like, so I ran him over. So I roll over pedestrians. But it's good to be here. It's one of the best things about being a comic is I get to travel a lot. I was out in Vancouver not too long ago, and which is a very beautiful place, right? But I mentioned this to another audience in Montreal, and somebody actually yelled out at me. They're like, "Ah, Vancouver. They're nothing but a bunch of granola-eating tree huggers." What am I supposed to say to that? I'm like, yeah. Fuck them. Eating healthy and loving the planet like that. What a bunch of assholes. Yeah, they should try to be more like us in Montreal. Bunch of poutine-eating chain smokers. More like us. Bunch of smoked meat sandwich-eating pigeon kickers. I mean, what kind of cynical world do we live in where we call somebody a tree hugger like it's a bad thing, right? I mean, no one hates those two things individually. It's like trees, beautiful. Hugs, adorable. Together, oh, what a dick! Actually, I saw one of the strangest things I've ever seen in my life when I was out west. Has anyone heard of a bee on a string? I've never heard of this, right? I was at this backyard barbecue party, and some dude captured a bumblebee in this plastic container. He brings it inside, he puts it in the freezer. It gets better. Now, the bee thinks it's time to hibernate, so it goes to sleep. The guy then takes the bee out of the freezer, well, before it freezes to death and becomes a beesicle. He takes the bee out, he grabs a spool of thread, and he ties one end of the thread around the bee. So when the bee wakes up and starts to fly around, now you have the angriest fucking kite I've ever seen. Why would you ever want to stop a bee from being anywhere else in the world? I mean, hey, what's next? Hey, snake on a leash. So I have been traveling a lot. I've been touring through the US, and you guys are all familiar with the stereotypes that Americans have towards Canadians, right? But I discovered that the further you go south, the weirder these stereotypes get. Like, if you go to New York or Boston, you hear things like, I hear you guys say A lot and drink lots of beer. That's not even a stereotype, that is a fact. But then you go to, like, Charlotte, North Carolina, you start hearing things like, oh, you're from Canada? I heard y'all live in igloos and ride around on polar bears, eating whale blubber. which is bizarre, but still pretty classic, right? We've heard all that stuff before. But by the time you get to Houston, Texas, it's like... I heard every time a beaver takes a dump into a hockey helmet, a Canadian is born. That's just fucking weird. Like, here's the thing. I don't expect Americans to know a lot about Canada. Like, I don't know a lot about the US, but I was at a dinner party in Southern California where I witnessed an ignorance so pure. And it deserves its own box in the periodic table of elements. We call it ST for stupidium. I'm the only Canadian sitting at this dinner table, and the husband, the host of the party, starts telling us a story about how his 5-year-old son was playing in a farmer's field and how he went to climb over a barbed wired fence and accidentally punctured his scrotum. First of all, I don't think he needed to use the word accidentally. Yeah, we get it. Pretty sure little Johnny isn't trying to scratch an itch on ye old barbed wired fence. But before he continues with the story, his wife stops him. She's like, "Hold on a second, honey." And then she looks out at me. So now the whole table is looking at me. She's like, "You're from Canada, right?" "Right. Do you know what a scrotum is?" Yeah. Scrotum. Isn't it that bag I dipped in the water to make everyone's tea?